Welcome to the NorthField podcast with Caleb Gordon. You can find out more about Caleb at www.calebgordon.com. Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It is 2017. We have made it. And I want to just share with you guys, just for a second, about what I think probably one of the most important things we need to do for 2017. I think what we need to be doing more than anything is we need to be waging war on our sin. We need to be men and women who are willing to step up to the plate and are willing to actually take time in our daily lives to destroy the strongholds that are in our lives. Whatever that sin is, whatever that thing is that is holding you back from having a vibrant relationship, whatever held you back from having a vibrant relationship with Jesus Christ in 2016, you can obliterate that thing. How can I say that? Because in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 through 6, it tells us that we can. What do you mean? How do we do that? Well, read it with me. Starting in verse 3, for though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but of divine powers to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive to obey Christ. You say, well, Caleb, that's great. You tell me I have the weapons to overcome and destroy Satan and destroy the enemy and destroy everything that's in my path. What do I need to do, Caleb? Well, I'm glad you asked that question too, because it's over in Ephesians chapter 6. And it's the armor of God. That is the key to winning a war, is you've got to be armored up. You've got to have the armor of God on before you can engage the enemy. If you go out without the armor on, you're going to get picked off. Like, it's going to happen. You will get picked off. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. Like, that's so key, because what we tend to do is when we try to overcome sin, we just try to white knuckle it and say, okay, this time, this year, I'm not gonna. I got my resolution. I'm not gonna do it. And then how many of us in 2 weeks from now are gonna do it again? Why? Because we're trying it in our own strength. We're trying it in our own might. Ephesians 6:10 tells us to be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. So we are strong in the Lord, like the Lord fights the battle for us, and we are not using our might, but His might. Like, His might is the thing that causes us to be able to excel and get to the next level and get to where we need to be. It tells us to put on the whole armor of God. In verse 12, it mimics 2 Corinthians. It says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against the authorities, against cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God. Not just some of it, but the whole armor of God. Like, it is so important that we actually engage in this and actually take up the entire armor of God. We say, well, I don't like that part. I want to just use this part. I'm not going to use that part, but I'm going to use it. There's going to be a point where Satan's going to see the hole in your armor, and he's going to attack that spot. He's going to attack that point, and he's going to cause you to stumble. He knows where to push your buttons. Satan knows where to push your buttons and how to push your buttons. And if you allow him to do that, if you allow him to push those buttons in your life, like, I'm going to promise you, there is going to come a point where you're going to struggle more in your walk. And you don't have to struggle. You don't have to have these trials and these problems, because God's called you and I out to do more here. And I'm telling you, this is the year. 2017 needs to be the year that we need to wage war on our sin. I'm really more than ever determined that this is the year that I am going to wage war on my own personal sin. I'm not going to look to everybody else's sin and be like, hey, your sin. No, I'm going to look at my sin. My sin is a problem, and I need to make war on my sin. And I'm telling you, that's how we win. Is we make war on our actual sin, and we don't just make war on it. Corinthians says, 2 Corinthians says that we can destroy the strongholds. We destroy strongholds and destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God by taking every thought captive. Like every thought captive. That's so big. That's so massive. That idea of taking every thought, and that's how when we begin to take our thoughts captive, that's when we can overcome and we can make war on the enemy. Because here's the thing. Sin begins in the mind. Like Satan plants a thought. He plants a thought in our mind, and we say, okay, this is awesome. This sounds awesome. I guess, have you ever had a point where you have, like, something sounds awesome in your mind, and then you say it, and you're just like, wow, I'd like to retract that because it sounded cool in my head, but it really didn't come out cool. That's the whole point of taking every thought captive, because Satan plants stuff in our heads that sounds cool. Like he plants things in our minds that sound really, really great. But man, there's so many things that come out of our mouths that are just like, oh my gosh, I want to retract that. That's what we need to take every thought captive. We take it captive, not in our own might, not in our own strength, but in the power and the work of the gospel and through Jesus Christ. Like that's how we get this point. This is where we get this. We take every thought captive to destroy the strongholds of sin in our lives. So we do that by taking up every thought and then taking up the armor and putting that on. And you read Ephesians 6, I'm not going to do it here, but if you read Ephesians 6, starting in verse 10, you can get all of the armor of God, like every nuance of everything that can destroy those strongholds. I want you to read it and take that time to read through that and look at that text. Ephesians 6, starting in verse 10, and it goes to like a verse, probably around 18, 19, 20. It goes for a while. So, I mean, but it's a good section of Bible to just really help you overcome and take out your sin. So this year is the year that we take out our sin, men and women. I'm challenging us that we make war on our sin this year. And I think when we begin to make war on our sin, that's when we can begin to have a more authentic and vibrant relationship with Jesus Christ. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I think this and I believe it. So, Happy New Year, and let's go get them.